Live. Ryan Ray, the good doctor herself, Dr. Ellen Wald. How you doing, Miss Wald?
Things are pretty good here.
Yes, yes. Well, I would say what's the weather, what's going on, but I probably should pull the curtain back here from last week. I had COVID last week, so I'm really trying to catch up with the world. I was looking through some emails today, and I was like, oh man, I missed a bunch of stuff last week. So what is going on in the great state of Florida? What did I miss last week when I was down
Hmm.
COVID?
Great state of Florida is hot. It's September. It's hot here. What can I say? Um, there were some football games.
Oh,
You
there were.
missed. Yeah, you probably missed some college football. There was some
Mm.
really good college football last week.
Well, there was an NFL game in Florida in your hometown yesterday.
That's true. I did hear that the Jaguar Stadium hosted the Saints
That's right.
and the
That's right.
Packers.
That's right.
Things did not go well for the Packers.
It went lovely for my Saints, so we'll take that W to start the season off. And how about your Giants? I didn't see
Oh
what
God. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to I mean, it was it was it looked like it was starting off okay, like pretty good, and then everything just went downhill from there. I mean, I'm sorry, but Daniel Jones has had his shot. He is not cut out for the NFL. I mean, like if I were the Giants, I believe like Cam Newton is still available. I
Yes,
would snap that up.
yes.
Like they have a decent team. I mean, they've got some great receivers. They've got a really good running back. They seem to have a pretty good defense. But man, they need a new quarterback. I'm sorry. I'd snap up Cam Newton right now if I
Well,
were them.
I don't know if they will or not, but hey,
Perhaps
listen, it
perhaps
can't
the
be worse.
Maras listen to our podcast.
It can't be any worse, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry. I know it's early in the season. Okay, let's get into it. Let's see here from the Wall Street Journal. Economic costs accumulate as countries worried by Delta extend border closures. It's funny that the new variant, I don't know how you say, is it the mu, or whatever, the MU. I don't know if it's some kind of Greek thing or whatnot, but um, it's not getting a lot of play right now. But the Delta's still in the news for whatever it's worth. I have no idea. But this is kind of the ongoing theme here, Dr. Wald, which is, hey, until you know what the world's going to do, it's kind of hard to make plans.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was interesting because there does seem to be this like dichotomy between people who think like Delta is on its way out, that's the end of it. I think I may have mentioned in a column I wrote, I was looking at a Morgan Stanley oil forecast, and they were basically saying that the Delta wave is waning and it's, full steam ahead after this. And I was kind of looking at that and thinking, uh, is that you sure the Delta wave is over? I mean, yeah, the South got hit in the I mean, it was the season. That's the season in the South, and nobody wants to be outside now. Everyone's indoors. It's like winter in the North. How are you so sure that the Northeast and the Midwest are not going to get socked with this Delta wave, starting in October? I just think that's a very big if to base your oil demand forecast on, especially because now we know from our friend at Gas Buddy that oil demand wasn't particularly impacted by the Delta wave in Florida and Texas and in the South. But that's a whole different, picture when you go up north. They're much more prone to travel restrictions and school closures and things like that that really can affect demand and travel. Plus, you've got the travel. I mean, travel like flights are down now. They've kind of hit their peak and are going down, and it could just get worse. So then you factor in this what they call the economic damage from the travel restrictions that are still ongoing, and I'm not positive that it's smooth sailing. It just seems like a very big if to me.
Well, the good thing I think is if you look at the football, at least on college football, the crowds seem to be there, right? The crowds are returning, and so that has to say something for demand.
Yeah, I think
At least sentiment, the word that we use, right?
Right.
And so when you look at like college football, Thursday night or last Saturday, whatever it was, it's like, okay, hey, the crowds are packed. They're and so people are at least willing to get out and move about. And at least the college students are, and the college games are.
Well, I mean, come on. Obviously, if you're a college student, but remember, a lot of these universities have a lot of other like mandates and stuff in place, just not at the football game. So, of course, the college students are going to want to go to the games and let loose. But and the Northeast is starting out well, but are they going to stay that way? Is Penn State going to fill the is Penn State going to fill their stadium in November when if COVID cases are up, or is the governor going to say that's it, guys? We're shutting this down, or is the university going to preemptively shut it down?
No. And listen, there's plenty of other types of projects that you might delay now because you're not entirely sure what's going to happen. But so you have kind of we're trying to figure out how people actually view the threat of COVID-19 and what they're willing to do. And sitting in a stadium with 100,000 people, I don't care if it's outdoors or not, you're going to get breathed on and touched on, and they're going to pass you drinks down the aisle and all that stuff. So, it says something about your willingness to go. And even the game we referenced earlier in Jacksonville, that's a game where, people are going to watch the team play. And it was hot there yesterday, they're saying. It was really hot.
Oh, yeah.
They want to go sit through it. And so I think that's a good sign. Now, if you're in other parts of the economy, I don't know how that works itself out, but for that, at least it's good. Okay. Speaking of moving around, China's saying that they don't want that. I'm really surprised. Were you surprised to see that China's not wanting people to move around? That was news. Like, when did that start?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this was interesting because, I feel like we stopped focusing on what was happening in China for a while. And in fact, these are like a big deal. I mean, there's, it's like, oh, it's not Beijing or it's not Wuhan. Well, there's this big city. This is a city of 2.9 million people, which is not especially small, reported 19 cases of COVID. And now all residents of this city are not allowed to leave. That's pretty huge. So it just seems to me like it's definitely not done in China. And what could this mean for travel? I know we know that air travel within China is still depressed. Does it look like it's going to come back or not? I know they declared the virus is under control, which personally I don't think you can have a virus really under control. But, are we so sure that China's down, controlled their contagious Delta variant outbreaks, or are we going to see, are we going to see more cities in China be put under these travel restrictions? Because that could definitely impact gasoline demand in China.
Yeah, and I think you have to wonder what China's motivations are with some of the stuff, because as the prices, I didn't look the prices more since this morning was like 75.
I think it's a little under that, but yeah.
Yeah, so Brent's at 73, WT's at 70. So the prices are in the low 70s. Well, that puts a strain on the Chinese economy. So listen. China's going to do what China wants to do, and it's just as likely that they are trying to stop demand because they're trying to, stop consumption from going up for certain products. I'm not saying they are or aren't. It's just not clear cut with them why they're doing what they're doing.
No, that's a good point. But remember, and I think we talked about that. I mean, aren't they planning to release oil from their SPR, which will probably drive down prices, at least in China? I know that Aramco cut their OSPs to Asia for October, so it does seem like that people are at least responsive, or that the consumers the producers are a bit responsive to the fact that these prices are just a little bit too high for China's liking.
Right, but wouldn't that fit into the narrative of you're locking down cities? Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to tell what they're doing at this point. But I mean, when you've got New Zealand locking down over one case or whatever it was, Australia, it's really hard to tell. But I don't think you're going to see the nationwide Chinese lockdown again. Do you think? I mean, it feels like we're past that point.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw city, more of these city lockdowns. And I think that, just because it's not in a city that we recognize like Shanghai or Beijing doesn't mean that it's not a big deal in terms of consumption, because there are a lot of really big cities in China that just aren't as big as the big ones that we recognize.
Yeah, well, let me just see here real quick. So, I'll pull up the list of the biggest cities in Texas. You have Houston, San Antonio, Dallas. Now, this is probably measuring the strict city limits, but Houston's
Yeah,
got
Houston's got that massive,
yeah, it'd be like 6 million when you count the sprawl, but the city limits is 2 million, 2.3 million. So this would be it wouldn't be obviously Houston because of the Houston sprawl, but if you're counting just the true city limits, 2 million people, that's like Houston. Well, that's a lot of people. I mean, it's a different amount, at least from the proper city limits of Houston. So to your point, it may not be a Beijing with 20-something million or whatever they have, but 2 million is not an insignificant number.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's something to keep an eye on in terms of demand.
Yeah, and to your point, I know Big Oren has a massive thread I saw right before we got on here about Chinese SPR demand. So if you want to go,
Ooh, we should check that out.
yeah, if you want to go, I'll let's retweet it now. There we go. He said that the Chinese are sitting on like 100 million barrels in their SPR. Does that sound right?
Yeah, of course. When they they release from their SPR, then they're going to want to refill it. So,
well, that is the problem, right? Once you use it, you lose it. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Go to plants now. Nearly 185,000 barrels a day of U.S. Gulf oil production returns as the Ida recovery continues.
Apparently, it's actually a bit more now. The article's a little out of date, but there's still a significant amount. I think now it's finally under 1 million barrels. That's still offline, but yeah, this is a really it's really kind of interesting how long the it's been offline. And there's actually, after I kind of curated these articles, I came across a really good article from the Wall Street Journal. I'll add it to the show notes, but it was kind of like a deep dive into what's going on with Shell, because Shell is really like, they're having a really hard time getting things up and running, and it really explored like what some of the big issues are in terms of Shell's oil platforms, the difficulties logistically as well. So they kind of followed this one platform operator out to this platform Appomattox, which wasn't actually damaged in the hurricane, but apparently like something part of it was hit by lightning, and the power was out. And so if the power's out, like, they have no, air conditioning in there, for where people live, and their refrigeration was out and their food spoiled. So like, you can't, even if there was no real damage to the actual, technical oil aspect, you still need people to run these things. And, Shell couldn't get Shell's area where they were dispatched people to these platforms was seriously damaged. So they had to find a new one. And, it's just, it's a very, I think it was a good look at how long it's taking and why it's taking so long. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. But it's definitely been quite a difficulty. In fact, it seems now that actually the refinery situation is improving faster than the oil production situation, which says to me that it's possible we could maybe see another SPR release from the US.
Well, two things here. One, we didn't get to talk about this because we were off last week, but we had Dahan on this program, and there was a permit that needed to get released, and our show got that done for the people.
Oh yes.
I mean, like right after our show went live, they released that permit to them. Yeah. So you're welcome. The other thing is we hadn't talked about is that when we first kind of came on, it's like, well, it doesn't seem the damage to be. There's some power outages. They probably get it back. It feels like the damage is maybe a little bit more lingering than at least I initially thought, and so it is taking a while to kind of get things back up and going again.
Yeah, especially apparently there was like a ship that Shell needs in one of its other places that wasn't able or couldn't move out of the way and was actually damaged and things like that. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Of course, now we've got another hurricane or tropical storm headed for Houston, which is supposed to bring something like, I think, between 6 and 20 inches of rain, which is a huge range if you think about it. But
Hold on, when is it coming?
like soon, like really soon.
Are we going? Are we going to go storm chase it?
Oh, let me
Uh-oh.
see.
Uh-oh, Dr. Wall's not going to
It's
do
supposed
it.
to be there like tonight, I think.
Oh, is it already?
Yeah, here, let me see.
I've been so out of all of this stuff.
Tomorrow
Oh, no.
morning, I think.
Oh, man, I'm supposed to go down
Yeah.
this weekend, I guess.
Yeah. So, and then there's so there's a storm surge. So it's weird. It's coming up, like it's coming in a weird way. It's like coming up the coast, like from Mexico. So there's a storm surge warning all the way up from up from the mouth of Rio Grande up to Sabine Pass.
Mhm.
So that includes like Galveston, Corpus Christi, Galveston, Houston. Port Arthur is obviously in there. So that's a question for those refineries. I think the issue is really less wind and more just storm surge and flooding. But who
Well,
knows with these things? Busy time for the Gulf.
yeah, and man, I wouldn't have had the stupid vid. I could have made plans to go down there. I didn't know. Well,
Sure, there'll
whatever.
be another hurricane.
You think?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not this year. We might be at the end of this year. Okay.
It doesn't end until November, Sometimes
I know.
October is the worst.
Well, have I told you about the time we were in Cancun and we're in a hurricane?
No.
We were in Cancun, me and my wife, gosh, about a decade ago, maybe. And hurricane hit like a little 3. And so the beach, we walked out on the beach so the 2 stories from earlier, we walked to the beach the next day, and where we stood, right? So we're standing, the water hitting our feet. I could put my arm on the beach from where it was yesterday. It cut out 4 foot overnight.
Wow.
We found the best shells ever because they're all embedded.
Yeah.
The other thing was that when it was coming in, we saw someone drown on the beach. Yeah, the next resort over, these guys went out there. I mean, there's no way you should have in the water, but I guess they were drunk or whatever. They went out there, one of them drowned right there on the beach. They're there for a wedding. He was from Corpus Christi, Texas. So my wife
boy.
down there, and it's like, it was bad. So, but yes. So folks, stay out of the water. Okay, let's go across the pond here. Expensive winter ahead as Europe's price powers surge. This was kind of getting a little traction on the Twitter webs this morning. Hashtag Nord Stream or no?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm actually writing a column about this for tomorrow. So I have dived deep into the European power situation.
What's going on?
So yeah, here's what's going on. Okay. First, we have the problem of surging natural gas demand. Apparently, during the pandemic, Europe's natural gas demand went way down, so producers accommodated by ramping down production. Okay, great. Well, then suddenly it surged this summer and they were totally unprepared for it. So they've depleted their stocks. So that's the biggest issue. Second is the fact that in late August, Russia started curbing its natural gas sales to Europe. So why? That's a big question. So there's a lot of discussion about the reasons. So according to Gazprom says that they do regular scheduled maintenance at this time of year in August and September, and they also redirect natural gas production to fill up underground caverns of natural gas to get ready for winter demand levels, and that Europe's demand this summer is basically on par with its winter demand, and so that's why they don't have enough natural gas, and Russia's not sending more. Now, some people think that actually and they claim that the Europeans knew about this. They knew that this is the case. So, their own damn fault, I guess. It's Gazprom's line. Now,
Russians blaming the Europeans are about to blame the
yeah,
Russians.
about to blame. So some analysts, though, think that it's actually a deliberate move on the part of Gazprom because they are frustrated with all the delays that Europe has been putting on the opening of Nord Stream 2, which is basically ready to go. But from what I understand, there's some sort of like weird European regulation that says that like Gazprom can't both own and operate the pipeline, so they have to get some other company to do it. And so maybe Gazprom is, so that they're wondering if Gazprom is deliberately holding back on natural gas deliveries to Europe in order to jack up the price and pressure Europe to let them get Nord Stream 2 online sooner, which does not seem all that far-fetched to me as like a tactic that Gazprom would take. But anyway.
And natural gas is sitting at $5.23 right now.
Now, on top of all that, that is not the only thing. On top of all of this, the wind stopped blowing in England. And typically in the North Sea, the North Sea, wind stopped blowing, and typically that provides about a quarter of Britain's electricity. So suddenly there's no wind, and natural gas prices are really high. So they're like, okay, fire up your coal plants. Okay, that's a nice solution, except for the fact that if you're going to burn coal, there are all these European like regulations that you have to offset by buying more carbon, like whatever's, and those carbon credits or whatever are traded on a market. So suddenly the demand for carbon offsets went way up because people want to burn more coal. So that made coal just as expensive as natural gas. So then they were like, oh, we want to go back to natural gas, but there wasn't enough. So basically everything is like got bid up over this. Plus Europe is like trying to shut down more coal plants and more nuclear plants. So like people are concerned that this situation is just going to get worse because there are coal plants that they're relying on or nuclear plants that are actually scheduled to be shut down in England over the winter. There's one in France that they are getting some electricity from that's supposed to be shut down soon too. So the whole thing is a huge mess. Anyway, that's my like
you
quick.
Europeans. I don't, you Europeans.
So what do we think? What do you think this has all been engineered by Gazprom, or is it just
if you're the Russians, why wouldn't you put pressure on the Europeans to get it done? I mean, seriously, like if the EU is one of the most dysfunctional organizations in the world, put a little squeeze on them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why not? So I like that. That's not a theory that's just crazy, obviously, and so
yeah,
that doesn't seem to be a problem. It's one of those things where you can't say I don't think the Russians would do that, because the Russians would definitely do that.
Yeah.
They would definitely do that. So yeah, I mean this is like their version of the Keystone XL. It feels like over there.
Except they actually got to build it.
They're going to get to build it, right. So yeah, I don't know. Russians putting a squeeze on them makes the most sense. And kind of going back to the comments about China, it's the same thing here, which is consumers don't have the extra money to pay prices, and so if you put the squeeze on someone right now, then you're likely to get what you want. So that's, if I was the Russians, that's what I would do. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. The other question,
freedom gas. I would say you're not buying the freedom gas from us, so it doesn't really,
Yeah, I mean, apparently, they are. I mean, the U.S. like Cheniere Energy share prices have like gone up by almost 50%, and apparently there are like tankers waiting in Qatar to load LNG to go to Europe, but it's not the same as like it just flowing from Russia.
No,
so
yeah.
I mean, it just seems to me like this is a huge problem, and more wind power is not going to solve it.
That's so weird you say that. I don't know why you say such a thing.
I mean, it seems to me like this is just a situation that's going to, we're going to see this more and more, like throughout, especially as these plants, as they close more plants, we're just going to see this more and more. But not only as they close the plants, but as they shift more towards all electric. Like Britain is trying to shift a lot towards these electric heat pumps. They're pushing the electric cars apparently. And I know this article came in the Daily Mail, so whatever, you can dunk on the Daily Mail.
Let's go to the Daily Mail. Let's go to the Daily Mail because I'm glad you said the Daily Mail article.
Yeah,
because,
who doesn't like the Daily Mail?
I think they're good for something. I don't have a problem with them. I think sometimes they're like, listen, you've got Brian Stelter on CNN acting like he's a real journalist. Let the Daily Mail pretend like they're real journalists too. So no, some of their stuff's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Some of the stuff is
all I can look at is the guy with no shirt and his dying liver.
What's going on with this?
I don't have that advertisement on mine, but anyway.
Wait, is my liver dying and I don't know it? Is that what they're trying to tell me? Does Google know something? I don't know.
I have ads for like TIAA network and Kroger. It wants to buy Cheetos.
The ad blocker's on. There we go.
Aha.
Okay. Charging point for electric cars will present. I can't read that.
Preset. They're going to be preset.
Preset. I know the ad blocker got me in here.
Oh yeah, me too.
Ad blocker. Charging points for electric cars will preset. Okay, I'm not reading the headline because everything's popping up in his mama.
All right, they're going to turn off for 9 hours a day.
9 hours a day.
Amid fears they will cause blackouts if the government hits its target for phasing out petrol and diesel. So basically they're saying, first of all, England just has a new law, regulation, whatever you call it, that says that all new houses have to be built with electric car charging things in them. Okay, fine, whatever. And now they're saying, but it's going to we're going to make that they're not going to be usable for 9 hours a day. It says from May, every new charger will automatically not function at peak times to ease the pressure on the national grid. There is also set to be a, quote, randomized delay of up to 30 minutes if there is high demand from motorists. So you want to charge your car? Oh, I'm sorry. No, you cannot. The transport secretary said to be anxious that huge numbers of drivers will plug in their car when they return home between 5 and 7 p.m. Yes, I fully understand why that is a source of anxiety for him. So they're hoping they'll just charge their car during off-peak hours. So who is going to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning to plug in their car?
Well, okay, but let me ask you this, because here's what it says. It says the new chargers in the home and workplace will by default not operate from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 4 to 10 p.m. 4 to 10 p.m. is a crucial charging time, to your point. But it then says owners will be able to override the preset times to take account of night workers' schedules. So,
how many night workers have electric cars?
Well, how is this like a vaccine card? You got to go down to the thing and say I'm a night worker schedule because.
Or can anyone just do it? That's a good question.
If everyone overrides it, then everyone's going to override it, right? And so you're going to. So yeah, I don't know. That's going to be.
It's going to be interesting. So yeah, because they're trying to meet we're trying to meet our targets to phase out oil, and now you can't charge your electric car because it's just too much pressure on the grid. Oh, I feel like they put the carrot before the horse here.
Speaking of which, did you see that Harvard will no longer invest in fossil fuels officially?
Haven't they said that 10 times already?
Well, they're saying they're serious this time, Dr. Wall.
This time, are they going to stop using fossil fuels?
No. Who's that guy?
In Harvard?
Yeah. We need to get that. We got to track down that guy. It's like, if you want to stop, okay, then let's just turn the power off.
Oh, that was in England too. There were these protests, and he's like, okay, guys, we're shutting off the power now. And they were like, no, we'll freeze. He's like,
Okay, let's see. I think we got one more.
They're actually going to make all of the half of the Harvard students are going to have to basically ride bicycles in the basement to power the campus. I made that up, but I could totally see them doing something like that.
That would be funny. Okay, one more story. I believe German power carbon rise to record on soaring gas prices. We talked about the gas prices some. The real question is how high do you think the gas prices will go? Every time oil prices going to 100, where are gas prices going to stop?
Yeah. Well, I do think that depends on when Russia does start to go back to its usual natural gas deliveries. Probably by October, I think that it's expected. They're expected at least to be done with whatever it is they say they're doing now. The question is, is that really going to be enough to bring prices back to where they should be? And I don't think so, honestly. I think that, it's spiking really high now, but I do think that we're going to see elevated prices throughout the winter, if only because there's a concern that this is going to affect winter energy prices, and so just trading will keep it up. Plus you've got this carbon market issue. It just, to me, like, I get that, like, they want to buy these like carbon emission. I don't even know if they're like credits or offsets. They're just like, I forget what they call them in Europe, but like, is it really helping anyone? Like, it's not stopping the demand. It's not curbing the demand for coal-fired power. Like, because at this point, if you're like, okay, the price is too high for us to buy these, well, then the answer is you've got to just shut people's electricity off. Like that's, and you've got to curb demand. I mean, you either got to tell people, okay, you really need to conserve electricity and curb demand, or the power companies have to do it in order to not, keep the prices from going up. So it just seems like the carbon, this market for like carbon offsets or whatever, carbon credits, isn't doing anything other than making it much more expensive, which isn't doing anything. Like, it's not actually doing anything for the environment, right? It's like the whole idea is to make it more expensive so people won't use coal. But when push comes to shove, they want their electricity, and they'll pay whatever for it.
But
so that doesn't seem to help anyone.
But how profitable are the Permian wells now if you have 5+ gas and 65+ oil? I mean, those Permian wells have to be huge money makers. That's not even counting all the dry natural gas plays who've been making money off of $2 to $3. Like, we should have a drilling boom in the U.S. right now, and we're not.
Yeah. If only all the offshore natural gas wasn't out.
It's just weird that we look at these prices going, okay, $5 natural gas, $70 WTI, say it's 69, whatever it is. And you say you have a well that's 70% oil, 30% natural gas in the Permian. I mean, that's lucrative. They were flaring off natural gas not too long ago.
Yeah.
You could sell it for that kind of price.
I mean, maybe they should just getting it to Europe, but it's still up. I mean, it's still expensive in the U.S. It's a good question. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, who's not sold on this?
Well, obviously, the U.S. producers are struggling to get their rigs out there, so at least like they have historically. So maybe the money's just not going to come back. I don't know. Maybe they get to $100 or something crazy for the money comes back. So okay, I think that's it, Dr. Wall. We have a short show today, which is good to get back in the saddle though. Where will you be this week?
Let's see. I will be on investing.com probably tomorrow, and I know it's a different day from usual, but and I think I already was or will be on BBC Radio today.
Okay. Inside the War Room, I have on Desmond Shum, who is a Chinese billionaire who escaped. His wife was kidnapped, or ex-wife was kidnapped for 4 years. He wrote a book. He released the book. The CCP let his wife go in hopes of getting her to dissuade him from releasing the book. It's a hot mess. It's just a hot mess. So I had him on, and then I have on Luke Patey, How China Loses later this week, and maybe a couple others. With that, we'll talk to you. Dr. Dick Foreman's here next week.
Exactly. We will ask him his take on the European power situation.